Look at all the love, Lynsey. Everyone's like, Lynsey. I don't know if you can see that in the chat, but wow,
I
you've got
can.
fans.
Hey,
I mean,
y'all.
besides just me and Polly.
Hey, Polly.
But yeah, if y'all are tuning in for the first time or again, please drop, where you're tuning in from into the chat box. We love to see it. Okay, but I'm your biggest fan. Okay, Lynsey. So like, I know lots of people are like, Lynsey.
I know that. I'll have you at the top of the list.
Oh, and I'm so glad we got you this year.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I was able to make it happen. Either way, I was gonna make it happen. So yeah. How the rest of the everything been going?
Yeah,
Good?
awesome.
Good.
Super good. Yeah.
Good.
Marie and Sina like really kicked it off for us, and now we can like start getting into the nitty-gritty fleshy parts of money and stuff like that, which you do literally it all. So I am like very happy. Well, sometimes when Polly and I are, anyways, we can talk about that later, but we are very happy to hear you speak.
I'm happy to be here to do that, and I hope I can, instill something or instill and ignite something in everybody. Yeah.
We've got, let's see, Oaxaca, Mexico, Colorado, DC, Pakistan, Belize.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God, I would love to be in Belize right now.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. All the time zones.
Yes, exactly. I realized I wasn't sharing my screen, so let me do that.
No worries.
Y'all can see that, right? Cool. Polly, Lynsey, are we ready? Should we jump in? Should we do this thing?
Let's do it.
All right, man, look at us starting right on time. Wow.
I love it.
So hello, everyone who is tuning in. If you have been here for the previous classes, we're going to go over who we are again. So if you want to extend your break by about 3 minutes, please feel free to go ahead. But for those of us tuning in for the first time today, hello, welcome to the Essentials, which are free online classes on navigating the photojournalism industry and beyond. This is our 4th season. OMG, 4 times we've done this, and it's all been made possible by partnering with grassroots photo organizations working toward inclusivity, equity, and access in the media. So that would be the Everyday Projects, Black women photographers, and Photo Wings. My name is Danielle Villasana. I'm a community team member of the Everyday Projects, in addition to my hobby of photojournalism. And the Everyday Projects is a global community of visual storytellers, all committed to using imagery to combat harmful misperceptions and to rise above persistent inequality through our work as photographers, which is so cool that you can do that through photography. As a nonprofit, we work to provide opportunities for our global community and to provide structure, support, and direction for the diverse and worldwide range of everyday photography groups. I'd like to introduce my incredible co-host, Polly Irungu, founder of Black Women Photographers, who's going to tell you all about the incredible things that she does.
Thank you, as always, Danielle. I can't believe this is the 4th season. Just so much wealth of knowledge throughout the seasons, and again this weekend. For those who may not know, I'm the founder of Black Women Photographers, the global community also doing the work in the visual industry space, specifically for Black women, non-binary identifying photographers. I'm excited to see some familiar names in the chat, so thank you all for showing up this weekend. And in addition to that, I really just want to say thank you again to Photo Wings. Danielle mentioned it, that this is free and accessible, and every season we've been able to do that because of that partnership, and not even just making it free, but also being able to transcribe. So after this, we're going to transcribe these to Spanish and French. And if you still need more accessibility, just reach out to us and we can hopefully make that possible for you to replay and enjoy these sessions afterwards.
Yes, and yeah, we have an amazing rest of today and tomorrow with this incredible lineup. And before we jump in, I just wanted to give a shout out high five, hug to those on the Everyday Projects team working behind the scenes to make this all just flow beautifully. That would be Rebecca Gibeon, Fiona Washira, and Austin Merrill, who along with Peter DeCampo are the co-founders of the Everyday Projects. Yeah, so thank you all of you for being here behind the scenes and covering mine and Polly's mess ups, which no one can see because they're just awesome behind the scenes.
Agree. And with that, we've got a great lineup for you all this weekend. Again, we've had 2 classes before this. Diving into our 3rd session for today with the one and only Lynsey Weatherspoon, which I'm really excited about. And we have some teachers who are talking about the most crucial topics in our industry. And again, these are classes that are free, available for replay. So if you missed the sessions earlier today, it's okay. Once we get them transcribed, they'll be available on both our respective organization sites. Throughout Lynsey's class, please feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A box where we can keep track. Don't be shy. This is the time to ask. Lynsey's here because she wants to help. And so please do ask your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them at the end of her presentation. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us outside of this as well. We've dropped our information in the chat where you can find us.
Yes, and as Polly has mentioned, just please make sure to take down our social media handles website so you can stay tuned for those videos that will be on our website, but also to follow all the other cool things that these organizations do. And as a reminder, at the end of Lynsey's session today, we will be having a meet and greet face-to-face where we can actually see y'all at 2:15 p.m. New York, DC, East Coast time. So come join us to get to know some other photographers doing cool work in the world, and copy and paste the link in the chat box that Rebecca will be sharing with y'all. So without further ado, let us get started. I am super excited for our next teacher, Lynsey Weatherspoon. Honestly, the response, the fan response is like exactly how I feel about you. So I'm glad to see that energy in the chat already. Your talents always surprise me. I don't know if y'all follow her on Facebook, but I'm just like, how does she do all of this? When you think she's at the top of one game, she shows you that she can top another. So she can just do it all. And I myself am very excited to hear her wisdom on how to achieve such success in various fields of photography, not just one. Lynsey is a portrait and editorial photographer based in Atlanta and Birmingham, and her editorial work has appeared in publications such as the New York Times, NPR, the Washington Post, Time, and The Undefeated, just to name a few. She's also worked with commercial clients such as MGM, Warner Brothers, GoDaddy, and WebMD. Like, wow, I want to know about that. Whether on assignment or for her personal work, Lynsey leaves a fingerprint of heritage on all she does, and her work has been exhibited at the African American Museum in Philadelphia and Photoville in New York City. She's also an awardee of the Lit List, a member of Black Women Photographers, Diversify Photo, Authority Collective, and Women Photograph. Wow, thank you so much, Lynsey, for being with us here today. Literally, you can do it all. So I'm just taking notes. I'm like, okay, here we go. I need to know how Lynsey does this. Let's go.
Well, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you both for that that introduction. It gives me like so much pleasure just to be here. It's been a very crazy yet fun ride to be in this photography space and to talk to more people who want to be on this ride as well. I don't know. It's just when I find the word to use, then I'll use it. I'll probably find it at the end of this moment. But yeah, I want to just essentially talk to you all about how you can, continue to do the work that you love, but also have some financial stability, because we all want that in this photography space. Just to give you all a little bit more about myself. Again, I'm Lynsey Weatherspoon, originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I live in Atlanta, Georgia now, but even that transition going from, a medium-sized metropolitan to an even larger space in Atlanta, that was actually a scary point in my life, because you move to this city knowing what's in your heart, but how do you make it make sense for you to have some type of longevity in that space? So I hope that what I'm going to share with you all, that not only do you find it useful, but you can actually see what your future is going to be. I'm not going to say what it can be, but what it is going to be. So yes, emojis, emojis, fire, fire, fire.
Thank you, Lynsey. All right, take it
Yeah,
away.
no worries. Yeah, indeed. Let me find the right screen for you all. Let's see. I know I had it. Yep, there it is. All right. I hope you all are having an amazing day out there. I mean, what's the weather like in all these other places? I know it's a little hot here in Birmingham right now. Let's see. Boom. All right. So what I want to talk to you all about is what we said earlier, just thinking outside of that editorial box. And then again, yes, thank you all. Thank you to the Everyday Projects, Black Women Photographers, Photo Wings. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me here. I really do appreciate it. But as I said earlier, the main thing about photography is just really trying to wonder what it can do, not only for yourself, but the people that you get to meet on these daily basis. So I've been a full-time photographer about, it's about going on 7 years now, but I've been in the photography space pretty much about 13, 14 years. A lot of people don't know that I am a former public speaking instructor. So I've taken what I've learned and what I've taught in that space into how I formulate, my thoughts and talk to people when I'm out on these different photo shoots. So, you have to think about, like, what are your other skills that's pretty much going to be useful in your photography world. And I know, like, for me, I didn't go through the traditional route of becoming a photographer. My primary goal was to be on television. I wanted to be somebody's anchor. But I worked in TV for a little while, not in front of the camera, but behind the camera, and then realized, this sounded fun, but I realized I wanted to do something else. I wanted to be among people versus being in a studio and sterile space all of the time. So being able to be sought out by different outlets, different publications, different advertising agencies, to be, with folks and learning their stories has been like the ultimate prize for me. And every day I can't help but to just be grateful for just being in this space. Meeting folks like the drum major at Clark Atlanta University, or Brian Stevenson, who's at the Equal Justice Initiative, just folks like that, and really, seeing people off of the page or television and really getting to know just who they are. And then also having the opportunity to make those photographs in order to tell the story. And not so much as always to sell something, but to find that story within that person or that moment. So I want you all to understand that just as you all are storytellers, whether you're in the photojournalism space, fashion, architecture, in everything, there is a sort of story that you are pretty much trying to tell. So, again, I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing folks, and just to get some like really stellar experience and cutting my teeth on certain things. So I really appreciate all of the people who have taken a chance on me to be the photographer that I am, and also for you all inviting me and trusting me that I'll be able to instill something in you today. So we'll briefly talk about these few things, like what is editorial and commercial photography, the advantages of being in this particular space, how to get your work noticed in both the editorial and commercial world, what to potentially show magazines and advertising agencies when you want to get in those spaces, and how to build rapport with not only future clients, but those that you have right now. I feel like, and I don't think this is out of the way to say, but I think if you have been in the photography space for at least, let's say, 1 to 3 years, you realize that world is very small. Everybody knows each other, people move around, they talk. So you have to understand when you're building a rapport with one person, you're building another one with 10 more, because if someone loves you or likes you and enjoys your work, they're going to remember you. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on down the road. But let's just talk about what is editorial photography. So in the editorial space, as you can see, it can cover different styles and genres, but in a simple form, it's usually just a space where you're not trying to sell anything. So you're pretty much just trying to tell the story, of course, through your images, or honestly through the video that you all make. I know that's becoming one of those things we have to put into our wheelhouse. So if you are covering a story where you're not trying to sell a thought or an idea or a product, you are making editorial work. And as you can see, your images are used to support the text. So just like in the photojournalism space, and I'm going to try to incorporate all these other areas too, but I know that for me, I'm heavy in that photojournalism space. So forgive me if that's the main word that I use, but essentially, if you're using your images to support a story in its sense, you are making editorial work. And most of that is going to be for magazines, textbooks, newspapers, whatever it is that you're using those photos or those images or those videos to support a story that you've been following for a while. Excuse me. So for these two photos, I made the black and white one was for The Guardian, and the one on the right-hand side was for the Atlanta magazine. And essentially, though, both of these stories had, a lot to do with the LGBTQ space, you have to understand, I'm only trying to tell a little bit of the story about the person in the black and white and the other person that's in the color image for the Atlanta magazine. I have no sense of trying to sell a thought. I am only adding to the text that the writer has created. So essentially, many of you are already, I have this feeling that you're already creating editorial work. You're just making things to support the words that somebody else has said. Now, let's move on to the meaning of commercial photography, which is the opposite of editorial. So you see that this space also has a lot of themes and styles that you can use, but you're basically going to use those images to advertise or to promote something. And I may be jumping ahead, but I'll say it anyway. Some of the images, some of your editorial images can be used in a commercial space through licensing. But again, we'll touch on that a little bit later. But I did want to put that in your thought so you can understand that just because you have an editorial image doesn't mean that somebody else could use that to advertise something else. Just understand when you are doing it in an editorial sense, that it was specifically for one thing, but it can be turned around for something else. I'm just going to read this word for word to you, but basically that the main difference between editorial and that of commercial is that it cannot be people or property within the image unless they have signed a model release or some type of property release. So that is one of the main sticklers as far as commercial photography goes. And most of those usages is going to be for promotion or advertising. So I'll give you all an example of something you may have not considered to be a commercial job, but in a sense it is. Let's say that I had to go back and make another image of Brian Stevenson. And my main point was to just make a portrait of him, in which I did. And matter of fact, this is a real life example. I made that image for NPR, but I was later asked to license that photo out for something for Vanity Fair. They used that same portrait in order to advertise something that he had already done. So even though I did not come into that particular process with the idea of selling an image, now I had the opportunity to make another sum of money just from that one image. And if you all have any questions about that later, definitely happy to answer that. But I believe that what we have to understand is that many of our images are pretty much evergreen. What I mean by that is you can use those images or license them out to other people for other things, whether it's, on the commercial side, not so much, because there's oftentimes you'll have contracts that say work for hire or perpetual usage and things of that nature. But on the editorial sense, at times you can license those photos out to other people. So again, if you all have any questions about that, definitely happy to answer. All right. So these are just some of the images that I use in a commercial sense. On the left-hand side with the beautiful Black boy in his face, his little smiley morning face. That was for Teach for America. So essentially, we're trying to use those images to gravitate towards people to sign up to become part of Teach for America. So I am using this image, they're using this as image, to promote the purpose of becoming a member of Teach for America. The other image on the right-hand side was a photo that I made for a stock agency, and it did appear in a few places. So that stock photo was meant to do just what it was supposed to do, add to somebody else's advertising for their company so they can eventually promote or make money or whatever they needed to do in that instance. All right. And this was for a pharmaceutical company. So like I said earlier, you can still make portraits, but it can still be used in a commercial sense. So everything doesn't have to be like a Nike campaign or whatever else. It doesn't have to be like these really huge places in order to make an impact through like the commercial images. All right. So what is the advantage or advantages of the editorial commercial space? To me, it's just having like the ultimate creative freedom. Of course, you want to make the images that are safe, but what I've always known and what I've always been taught is to also get the image that you want. Sometimes you'll walk into a space, especially in an editorial space, you'll have people to say, well, here's this shot list. We need these, we need that, all well and good. But if you know that there's something else that you can create that will add to the story, that may be something that the creative director didn't think of, then go for it. By all means, usually creative directors will go towards the work that they first asked for, but they'll definitely go towards the different thing that you tried to do. So just make sure that you're not always just sticking to what's safe, what is being asked for. Do you, like literally do you. First of all, they asked you to do it because they trusted you. And now that they trust you, you can use that type of flair or type of creative, artistic idea that you have and try to incorporate it into the story. Now, of course, every idea is not going to fit every story, but if you have the opportunity, by all means, you have to do it. You have to try it. Now, if you are in or trying to find that space for yourself, how do you find these editorial assignments? And I believe this is more very general information that you all can use no matter what city, state, country, wherever you are. These are just some very simple tips that you can use. So some steps you can use is like research some of your local publications. I know we all would love to work for, Time and Vogue and Vanity Fair, all great publications. Yet, if you feel like you don't have any contacts there, start small. Start somewhere that's close to you. And not so much close, it doesn't have to necessarily be in your particular city. It can be one state over. It can be one town over. Those local publications, those local publications are just as valuable as the large ones. I do remember when I lived in Birmingham, there was one magazine that took a chance on me. And after they did that, I worked with them consistently. And it also allowed me to learn just like, what's it like to work with a creative director? What is it like to just pretty much work for a working magazine? So don't discount the people that are in your city or close to you. They're just as important as everybody else. And they'll probably be more likely to give you a chance before those bigger publications as well. And while you're doing that, send your work to magazines for consideration. Like what stories captivate you to where you can send it to that publication that you've always wanted to work with. Now, it's very rare to get an assignment with a magazine, with your dream magazine, but at least let's say if you find an editor that you feel like you can trust their opinion, then start talking with them pretty often. Send them work. You go to these different events, these different portfolio reviews, which I'll talk about as well. You go to portfolio reviews, you stay in touch with these folks, and that's how you start sending your work consistently to people. Another way, as I said earlier, to stay in touch with photo editors when you have new work. So if you're already working, you already have leads. So I know sometimes it's great to work with a magazine and be like, oh, they'll call me back. They probably won't. They will, but they won't. And that's not to discourage you, but to give you some real life, a real life way to think about it. If you are not being consistent and staying in touch, how do you expect someone to remember you? So stay in touch with those photo editors that you've already worked with. And that way they'll see your work. They may pass you on to another photo editor for a different story. So again, people talk, people move around. Just make sure you're staying in touch with the folks that you already have worked with. And then, of course, make sure that the style of work that you're creating is somewhat cohesive to the publication that you want to work with. And then once you found your style, stay true to it. Be consistent. Tweak it a little bit. You can experiment, but if there's one way that, someone knows you, they knows your work, then stay that way. There's nothing wrong with that. You can create other ways that you can make work, but also just make sure that you're staying true to who you are. Now, if you all have never heard a landline, that's a landline. So I'm just saying, I'm at my grandma's house. Everything is vintage here and I love it. So we're gonna move on to the next thing. So how do you find commercial clients? And the best way to find commercial clients is to it may take a little bit longer, but the business there is pretty abundant. As I said earlier, it's great to want to work with these larger companies, but I promise you that the smaller companies oftentimes have the larger budgets. And if they don't have the largest budgets, they'll be the ones to hire you much more consistently. Been there, done that. So while you're building your list, make sure you look at some of the smaller businesses that's in your area or within like your metropolitan area. So again, that space may take a little bit longer to build, but at the same time, you will have some consistency if you stay in touch with those businesses. One way is if you're doing headshots for a company consistently, that's one way to build a commercial portfolio. Another one is like to take a look at the style of work that you're currently creating. And even though you may be, trying to find your style in the editorial space, it can translate somewhere else. It can translate in the commercial space as well. Assess who would benefit from your style and your subject matter. What I know about myself is that I'm always, it's guaranteed that I'm going to get a project that deals with civil rights, a civil rights leader, or anything that deals with like social and civil rights. I've embraced that and I know that. And I also know that most people are going to look for me to make portraits. Again, when you know that about yourself, you embrace it and you create more work that may be in those spaces. So if your style and your subject matter works, then see who could benefit from that. I know that I just finished a project with the ACLU, and though I've worked with them consistently, I've never done anything for their magazine. And I just finished a project where I worked on I did a story for their magazine. So again, you have to think about like the little steps that you take as a creative, how they're going to lead you to the next thing that you're trying to do. How is that going to make you, the one that they reach out to much more consistently? Another way is to research the advertising agencies and marketing firms that's in your area. I'm gonna keep saying this. Look for the low hanging fruit. Of course, reach for the stars. By all means, I want all of us to reach for the stars. But if the star is right there, you can grab it and say, hey, I can talk to this person, talk to that person. So just think about the things that are close to you, because even those local brands or those local advertising agencies, they still reach outside of the vicinity of where you live. And then also send an email to an art or creative director for advice or portfolio review. I know when I was starting out, that was one of the things that I did pretty heavily, and I've also re-implemented that process into my plan as well. Finding, let's say if you use or you're familiar with LinkedIn, finding someone that you could potentially trust and have a working relationship that would be able to help you kind of define what type of clients you should consider for your future. I hope you all are, getting some good stuff out of this. And then how do I start shooting for those editorials or those commercial clients? And I'm a huge stickler on personal projects. I try to have a personal project at least once a year, and it's more so where the project is for me. And then we'll determine if I decide to show it to some other creative directors or whatnot, how can it fit into some of the clients that they currently have? But you won't know that unless you actually create the work. So find an interesting subject, and you have to think about where you can find those ideas and inspiration. A lot of those things are already in you. If you look at your portfolio and see what type of stories you've already been telling, or the type of stories that you feel like you should tell, those are your interesting stories. Those are like the things that you jot down, or where you have a notebook on your side table, and in the middle of the night, you're like, there's an idea, write it down. Those things can be your personal project. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It could be something extremely small. You can work on that. Maybe it could be a project that you give yourself a year to create, or you can give yourself a week to create. No matter what, you have to self-assign some stuff to you rather than waiting. Because if you wait, then it's not going to be a pretty thing for you. You have to give yourself space to create outside of what is already given to you. So create, these unique portraits, these landscapes, these narratives of choice, whatever type of stories that you've been just yearning to tell. This is your opportunity to do this. You can find an interesting story in your neighborhood or your city. I know for me, I've been working on my family, like archiving my family's photos. Something as simple as scanning those photos. You might find something that you have a question about, as far as like one of your elders, and then out of that comes something else, and then something else comes out of that. So stories are already around you. It's just how much are you willing to find them for yourself? You can also pitch these ideas to creatives. I will always say again, start with local publications. That's just going to be helpful. And it also just allows you to, if you are a person that may be nervous or afraid to speak with someone, that'll give you some practice in that area. And then also make yourself discoverable after shooting this work. So however you decide to do that, I don't want to give you a surefire way, but if you have found success on a certain platform or through, what is it? It's not Stackable, Teachable. I can't think of it. It's so many now, but different platforms where you can write these stories, where you can send newsletters, whatever way works for you, then make that work available to be seen. All right. So this work is some personal work that I created while I was in New Orleans. And I'd never heard of Second Sunday or any of that. I just happened to be walking around the neighborhood. This gentleman told me that the Mardi Gras Indians would be out on that Sunday, and I stayed out there for 3 hours just making photos. And it also just kind of ignited another piece of me, another portrait side of my mind. So even when you just stumble upon things, you just never know what's going to come of it. I made these photos again for myself, and I made them available on Instagram. I want to say this was around 2017 when I made the images. And towards the end of that year, I had someone to reach out to me to license these for a magazine. So again, you have to really think about you have to go into a situation where you're not thinking about money first. It's about what is on my heart, what type of work do I want to create, and where does this sit like within my legacy. I also had a personal project that I've been working on for a few years about the Gullah Geechee community out of the southern part of Georgia. These type of stories have also allowed me to work on similar stories. I've also had people to reach out again to not only learn more about my experience with this particular subset of Gullah Geechee folks, but also to create work for other publications on the same subject. So this is why I'm always going to be the person that says a personal project, if you look at it in a very wholesome way, again, if you look at it where I want to get this story out without the thought of a financial benefit, then those things will come to you. And I hope that makes sense to you all. And as I said earlier, I know that a lot of stories that I've done has been centered around civil rights, civil and social rights, and things of that nature. And also just knowing how to make, images within any type of situation, which led to someone just out of the blue reaching out to me from MGM to be the unit stills photographer for Till, which is the movie about Emmett Till. So again, when you're just out here just having your head down or doing your work, you just never know what type of opportunities will literally fall in your lap or come in a text message or come in an email. So I just want you all to just keep having that same desire to create, because you just never know what's around the corner. And the latest project that I'm working on it's called I See Myself in You. And this project is centered around queer Black women and their experience as far as like telling their stories about their coming out story and just being in a space where we all feel safe. And thankfully, with this project, this is more of a thing where I'm doing it for myself, because I know that I've never done a project that has been centered around a lot of my identities. And I'm also making videos that's attached to this. So I'm going to just keep reiterating, find that personal project that's going to be like that light at the end of the tunnel, where you may go and make, photos for an assignment, but when you come back to your personal work, it makes you feel a bit more whole. Portfolio reviews. So with portfolio reviews, I've been to quite a few. This is an older picture. I went to NYC Photo Works in 2018, and this is where I had a very eye-opening experience as to be able to be in a space with photo editors from different publications, different agencies, and then just honestly learning how to talk about my work. I think we can often have a habit of just letting our work sit on different things, but not being able to verbalize. And as a former public a former public speaking instructor, talking is always going to be at the top of my list, because you have to learn how to speak about yourself and also to speak about your work, which led me to the opportunity of applying for the New York Times Portfolio Review and doing the same thing. And I respect like those who can be true to themselves, but we have to understand that photo editors are looking at our work, but they're also trying to understand, what type of person are you? Can we trust you to go out and actually talk among the people and do what we need you to do? So again, communication is going to be just, be top of the list for quite a few things. And lastly, we're just talking about building a rapport with your photo editors and creative directors. As I said earlier, learn how to stay in touch. A lot of photo editors follow us on Instagram and all these other platforms. And if you feel like you can converse with them through those things, by all means do that. But also realize that an email is important too. You can go back to pitching those ideas that you may have, whether it's a story that may have branched from an assignment that you had, or a story that may be coming from a personal project that you have, like a layer of that story. You can do all of those things. please, by all means, build a relationship. Relationships matter. Just as you want to build one with a photo editor, they want to know just exactly who you are. What type of person am I dealing with? And again, can I trust you? You should be able to trust the photo editor too. And the photo editor wants to trust you as well. And do your homework on your potential clients. You may go on with one idea and realize, hey, I may not be the person for you. And I've had moments that I've had to say the same thing, like, listen, I appreciate it, but I may not be the right person for this story. And you don't realize how much respect a person will have for you for telling the truth. Of course, we want all the stories, but if you feel like I just don't know how to do it, it's okay to say that. And then that way they can come back to you with something else that they know that would be able to fit. All right. I won't talk about this too much, but I'll touch on it slightly. When you are thinking about bidding on different things and somebody comes to you with a budget, you have to think about what your personal creative fee is going to be, hiring a team, the key elements of that shoot, whether it's going to be the type of people that need to be there, the location, the production value of everything. But what I will say is that usage and license fees are pretty huge. And though those fees have gotten smaller and smaller, you're still able to ask just for what you need after images are chosen. Then you can charge extra fees for those images in case they're used beyond the time that they agreed. So for example, and I may be getting ahead of myself, but again, I will answer these just as soon as the presentation is over. If I did a production, these are very rough numbers, so don't take my word for it. But let's say I finished a production and the client wants 5 photos and wants to use them for 2 years. I can charge a fee per photo to be used for 2 years. And after those 2 years are up, the client can come back to me and relicense those photos for another however long. So you can still keep making money with the same photos. I'm actually still making money off of the same photos that I've made maybe 2016, 2017, just depending on what the image is. But your images, some of your images, as I said earlier, are evergreen and some of them have a time limit. But for those that you know are going to be used constantly, that you have a feeling it's going to be used constantly, make sure that you are notating those things properly. So that way when somebody needs a photo from you, you just provide a rate and send it on to them. All right. Some recommended websites other than our sponsors. I would definitely say use a few of these, especially ASMP. Lots of resources there. They definitely have a book that you can kind of read through what you should be looking for as an editorial and commercial photographer. I really enjoy a photo editor, especially the series that they've been running about the individual photographers and their rates and what type of work they do, and then them breaking down just how they make money. It's been an excellent series. That's been my favorite thing that a photo editor has done. And yeah, so these other the other websites such as Skillshare and Photo Shelter, they do have another teaching element as well. For those of you who are familiar with Diversify Photo, we love them, along with Women Photograph. Wonderful Machine also has different blog posts that you can read about as far as breaking down different bids and different quotes. So all of these resources I use on a regular just for my own business as well. And to close it out, this is going to be the most important takeaway that I hope you have today. And that takeaway is to keep making photos and trust your process. So I appreciate you all. I'm definitely ready to answer some questions, and I hope all the things that I said made sense along with the questions that I'm going to answer today.
Thank you so much, Lynsey. That was just so helpful and practical as well. We have a lot of great questions, so I'm just gonna start them rapid fire because I know we have a lot to unpack here.
Sure.
So one central theme so far was about licensing.
Mhm.
I'm going to group some of these questions together. When
Okay.
it comes to licensing, how do you actually just like break it down in terms of like somebody reaches out for a request? How do you
Mhm.
determine that price? How do you determine like that usage?
Mhm.
Um, how do you determine, if you're going to actually license it to multiple people? Is that
Mhm.
possible? What do you to make sure work licensable? Like
Mhm.
you about having different model releases and things of that nature. What are all these various factors that you need to determine in order to license, if you can break that down?
Yeah, most definitely. At one point, and I haven't looked in a while, so forgive me for not having like the straight up answer. But at one point, Getty had a calculator that allowed you to kind of plug in how a photo was going to be used and what that potential rate could be. Like, for example, let's say if publication A reached out and said, "Hey, we want that photo that you made of Danielle and Polly. They were in the flowers, just looking nice with a pretty smile. But we want to use it as a 2-page image and it's going to be used just for one month because most of the time, magazines they're only going to use it for a very short time." Some key questions you can ask is, of course, if they didn't tell you all of that, you can ask them, how are you going to be using this photo? How long? And you can also ask them if they already have a rate. Most times they do, and if in the times that they don't, thankfully we have resources like Diversify Photo and Women Photograph who could potentially help you with a rate. I don't want to like quote any numbers like to be like hard numbers, but let's say that example that I gave you all earlier about the image of Brian Stevenson, where I made, a rate for an assignment and then was reached out to license the photo for a 1-page spread for, I want to say it was like $8,000. But that was their rate. It could have been higher, but that was the rate that they were offering. So I think using those resources that I mentioned earlier, like ASMP, APA, and then those local groups that you're already in to understand how to break down those numbers and honestly just asking the right questions. We all talk, just like I said earlier, just like photo editors talk, we talk as photographers like, hey, well, they gave me this, you should offer this. And I don't think there's any problem with saying that because if we're all going to be in this together as a family, we have to look out for each other as a family too. So long story short, if the Getty calculator is still available, use that, but also ask people who are knowledgeable in this area to kind of give you an idea of what to ask for.
No, that's really helpful. And I'm gonna off the same boat, just grouping this together. You
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, like a lot of your personal work later becomes, a license request. So
Mhm.
on a similar line, how do you like keep that original work protected, knowing that
Mm.
maybe down the line you could license it?
Mhm.
Of course, that's not what you were making those
Right.
photos for at the time, but just knowing in the back of your head, okay, how do you protect that work? And then what are some sites or how are you getting these licensing requests? Are you actively listing your work somewhere to be licensed?
Good question. So I'm definitely protective about my work. It has to go on a space that I know that the story is going to be told in totality versus what is in that image. So yes, I definitely protect what is mine. I protect the people that's in those photos too. But if let's and I'll ask people like, do you mind if I do? And some people have said no, by all means, thank you. But you have to be knowledgeable enough, and especially if these people are close to you, knowing those things and knowing again what questions to ask in order to not disrespect the integrity of what your personal project is about. Now, as far as where my images are to be licensed, my personal project photos are with me. Now, for my editorial and commercial stuff, that is with us, my agency that I'm with my agent. So at times some people still reach out to me, but thankfully now I'm at the position of saying, just reach out to my agency and they'll be able to help you with that stock request. But sometimes I'll do it myself as well. But I don't go into the personal projects with the idea of, oh, this looks like a photo that somebody would one day want to license. No, I go into it with the idea of this could be part of this particular group's archive without me having to like profit from it from any type of way.
Love that. And just because you touched on this, I'm just going to transition past this other question.
Yeah.
Because there's so many good questions here, but you mentioned agent. What was that turning point and transition for you that you decided, okay, I need a manager, I need an agent? Like, what is the difference? And how much of what role do they have in getting you these projects?
Yeah, another excellent question. So the agency that I'm with right now was one that I reached out to many moons ago. This is before I even got to the point where I am now. And I can honestly say that I jumped ahead. It's like I didn't need one then. I didn't even know any of the stuff that I'm talking to you all about right now. Like, just from an honest standpoint. But it got to the point where I just had a lot of things, a lot of projects that were coming in. And honestly, they reached out to me. I think people, as I said earlier, we have people that we don't realize who are watching us and want to potentially work with us. And I think it's amazing that the generation behind me, I'm just so proud of you all because you all have access to so much stuff. And then there's so many photographers that look like us in this space now. And so you realize that we, not only have like this commercial value in a sense, but we have these storytelling aspects that people are looking for. So to be among this group of photographers that are represented in the group that I'm in, I'm very grateful for that. But again, I also know that I didn't go into photography wanting, how can I put this, to necessarily have a rep. I did ask for one because I thought I needed one, but I realized that if I did this if I kept my head down, staying consistent and persistent, then I was going to get all the things that I deserve. So the agent, as great as it is, I will say this honestly, that is not necessarily a necessity. It could be a want. And I wanted one for the simple fact of helping me to be in spaces that I may not have had access to. So that is the advantage of having a rep and being part of an agency. But I will say, in a sense, they have been extremely helpful. But honestly, if you are just getting into this thing, just understand it's not a necessity. Somebody's watching you, and if you feel like that rep or agency is good for you, then do that. Also, if you don't feel like they're good for you once you become part of it, then say that. You have an integrity about your work. You have an integrity about yourself. So just be honest with yourself about all the things that you want to do, because honestly, an agency is not going to make or break you. It's all in how you want that particular person to help you out.
Man, I'm all fired up listening to you, Lynsey. This is so amazing. And I hope you have a second to look at the chat, but everyone is gushing over you and all the incredible advice you've been sharing.
Thank y'all.
Lots of emotion. And I agree. That trust your process is something that I definitely learned from you. So you're just, man, full of good advice, and we have so many questions. So we're gonna pivot to like a more tangible, like, how do you actually do this thing? So one person asked, I'm just gonna couch two questions in one, but one person asked, when sending work to editorial or even commercial clients, or even if it's a pitch or whatever, what should people put in the email? Like, what does that communication even look like? And so email first, what does that look like? How do you even get in touch with, what do you say? And then people have a couple questions on portfolio reviews. So are you showing prints or digital presentations of your work? And do you change your selection based on the portfolio review? And how do you tell your story and talk about yourself at a portfolio review? If you forget any of the questions as you answer, but to
Gotcha.
email and then portfolio reviews, how do you
Gotcha.
do it?
Okay.
Thanks,
So
Lynsey.
no problem, no problem. So with the emails, I make it pretty simple. Hi, hope you're doing well. We'll probably replace that line sometime soon, but hi, hope you're doing well. My name is Lynsey. I'm a editorial commercial photographer based in Atlanta. If I know something about them that doesn't sound creepy, it's like I found your information maybe on LinkedIn, would like to, connect with you. Here's some of the work that I create. And then I'll offer, can we, have like an online meeting within a couple of weeks or whenever your schedule allows. And then I'll add my link to my website and call it a day. But that just gives me another person I can potentially add to a list of people I keep in touch with maybe once a quarter, not to bother people, because I just don't like to bother people a lot. But I'll bother you enough to say, hey, just send you a reminder, or I'm just refreshing the work, sending you fresh work that I've done. So I don't make it hard on myself. It's just more so of introducing myself. Now, if you've already worked with this person, then I think it could be a little bit more loose because they know your personality. Just checking in with you. Sometimes people, if we're on calls like this, they'll tell you something about their kids. Insert that, something that's going to make it personal because you've already talked to that person. So that's that part with the emails. The other part was what again?
Sorry, that on mute. The other part was portfolio reviews. If you can kind of break down
Portfolio
a
reviews.
little bit, like, are you showing actual prints? Is it digital? Is your portfolio changing based on who you're meeting with? And like portfolio reviews, especially like the first couple that you do, can be really intimidating, right?
They
so
can.
How do you also prepare for like what you're going to say? Because in a portfolio review, if you're in person, just for those who maybe have never been in one, you're literally just sitting down across from an editor at maybe like the New York Times or Time Magazine, and they're just looking at you like,
pretty much.
All right. And you're like,
yeah. Well, it is one of those things. And I think it's just a thing of practicing talking about your work because no one knows it any better than you. And then also engaging that person. Because you can tell when people are stopped in their tracks by something. So if they linger too long on something, then you can stay on that photo a little bit longer and talk about the story. What I've found successful is that as far as like the presentation of everything, I have a box of prints that I take with me. And that is also what I realized, that people are tired of looking at screens. They're like, oh, this is great. We can flip through things. So I've already gotten an advantage because they'll remember me just by that. And then after that, exchange contact. And then I'll have like a postcard or something that's like a leave behind. Like, here's a photo that I've made and, let's stay in touch, that type of thing. And I know I've done portfolio reviews a lot. So I know what to look for in a person and in the things that I want. So if I had to, keep doing the way that I was doing it, I would take a literal box of prints so that way people can sift through things. And then it also keeps their eyes off of you. So if you're one of those people that you don't want like people looking at you, they're looking at the prints. But you can also stop them in their tracks and give a story, not only about the person that you made the photos, but how you made it. Like, what interesting happened while you were making that photo, or tell a story of how it may connect you yourself to the photo itself. So again, we all have to practice talking about our work. It definitely makes a difference when you are, trying to present a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Sometimes even just like sitting with a friend or yourself in front of the mirror or a partner and just be like, okay, pretend to just be this person and then just practice it. Because the more you practice, the more it's going to sort of flow off the tongue.
Yeah. And it's also like a conversation as well. Just have some friendly banter.
Yes. Yes. Hello, my name is
right. That'll keep you from doing that. Yeah, definitely.
Do not ask me any questions. So on that note, how do you go about asking for a portfolio review? Is it different than say pitching to an editor? And then sorry to piggyback once more. And I know Paul we'll have some more questions as well. So yeah, how do you go about asking for a portfolio review? And then you brought up like public speaking, which is so cool. I didn't know that about you. Someone also asked, do you have any general tips for public speaking, which is a great skill to have in this industry.
As far as how to ask for a portfolio review, I think it depends on who you are reaching out to. Whether that's going to be an online portfolio review or an in-person, just make sure you have, again, it goes back to making sure you have work that that particular editor or publication would like to see, or at least like to have as part of their publication. People keep a roster of people. I know that there's been plenty of times that I've met with people and it would be years down the road before they contacted me. It's like, I've kept you here, but we've been trying to find the right story to have you to do. So again, you just never know who's keeping you at top of mind. And you said reaching out to editors, like how do you reach out to editors? Public speaking. Okay, yeah. Public speaking. So so with public speaking, I will say that I treat everything as if it's a conversation. I may not know you from anybody, but I feel like that you deserve to be spoken to in a way that makes both of us feel special. So I just like to keep things pretty light. If I see something about you that I like, maybe I like your hair, maybe I like your shoes, I'll compliment you. And then hopefully something will come of that. But other than that, I just like to make people feel like, hey, we've been friends for this long. And it actually works with assignments too. I don't know any other people, never. Now there's been some times I've known the people, but 90% of the time I don't know anybody. But by the end, we feel like we've known each other for quite some time. So just make people feel warm, make people feel like, you actually want to be there, because you do. So just make them feel good.
That's why you're so special, and we love you so much. You're just out there just trying to make us all feel special.
I am, always, because we all are. We all are.
Polly's they're still firing away. Polly's got some more for you, Lynsey. People have a lot of questions for you.
I'm going to transition into the stock photography side of your work.
Yeah.
How did you get started into stock photography? How do you get considered for future stock photo assignments? And then talk about the different releases you may need when it comes to stock photography.
Yeah. So honestly, I was approached by an agency just to have like a test shoot of sorts, and then to see how those images would work well within their particular library. But then they had a program through Adobe where we had the opportunity to make photos in the spaces that we wanted to make them in. And what I mean by that is that I got to choose what type of subjects I wanted in those photos. And what I realized is that most stock agencies have a lack of older Black people within their libraries. So they may look very stiff, but I wanted my group of people to look very lively. So and quite honestly, you don't necessarily have to be approached by a program to start making stock work. You can make stock work on your own. You pretty much just need a model release in order that kind of breaks down what those images may be used for. I will probably still talk to, kind of do some research on what that release looks like. But essentially, you just need that permission from the person before you add them to some site without their knowledge. But you don't need an agency or anything like that to create stock work. You can pretty much do that on your own. Kind of like the personal work, you can make stock work on your own too.
And then on the note of releases, when it comes to editorial, when would you ask somebody to sign a model release or not?
Most editorials, I haven't had to have model releases signed. I just signed a contract to do the job. But you know what? That's an excellent question. And if I found the answer and be able to send it to you all, then I'm happy to do that. But most of the time I'm just signing a contract to do the assignment versus a model release for the actual person.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm going to transition to another area. We are just starting to reach out to local small businesses. How do you choose which ones and how would they have the budget to hire you? How do you choose which ones would have the budget to hire you a few times in a
Good question. I think you can, I mean, there's a plethora of small businesses at this point. And if you find one that has a mission that you're familiar with or close to, then I would probably start with those type of businesses. Now, all of them are not going to have these large budgets, but at this point it's about consistency. Because if you're looking for a consistent check and a consistent way to kind of practice, even though you know what you're doing, but you have a consistent way of practicing your skills, I find those places to be really good sources that you can make work for. Now, you also have, excuse me, you also have these small businesses that may look like, they look like large corporations, but they're considered small businesses. They may have some other, leeway as far as budgets go. You have to think about it. Some people don't have creative budgets, but when they see the necessity of it, they'll have a desire to come back to you and say, hey, well, we only have this, but we really like working with you. As I said earlier, it would be great to make 20,000, 30, 50, 100,000 every job. But for me, if I'm making a consistent 5 a month, then I'm fine. I know I can do more, but I'm going to be loyal to the people that gave me a chance. I'm always going to look out for those folks. So again, if you don't always lead with this idea of I have to versus I want to, you're leaving a lot on the plate for yourself. So when you want to do something, all the things that you want will come to you. And I hope that made sense.
No, it does. In
Yeah.
almost the same line of fees, there's another question about creative fees. Can you explain what a creative fee is and how you determine that? Is that different? Is that like a fee on top of like you're actually shooting the assignment?
So your creative fee, it can either be just the fee that you have as a photographer, or as I've seen lately, some people bunch their shooting fee or their photography fee and their licensing fee together. So let's say if I have this job, I would say that my creative and licensing fee is, again, I'm just making up a number, is 15,000. But in my head, I'm like, I want my creative fee, my personal fee that comes to me is going to be 8,000, and then the licensing fee is going to be another 7,000. Again, some people do those things separately, but some people do them just as a package, just to make it a easier process for themselves. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but that's what that creative fee is.
Love it.
And I'm like, love it to 8,000 plus 5,000. Like, I really need to, like, yeah, I'm just gonna do what you do, Lynsey. Sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like literally my eyes were like ching, 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 ching.
There was a question here about your work from the Till movie. As you mentioned, this is not something you were seeking. It was just years of work and people are paying attention and reached out to you to photograph as for the stills for that. Since then, have you got into the process of becoming a member of like a unit, still photography union, or try to seek other movie still work? And so what advice do you have for someone who wants to be in that space?
Yeah, so I did another movie. That movie was 2021. I'm dating myself. 2001. No, 2021. And then immediately at the top of 2022, I had another movie. And when I realized this was going to be a bit consistent, then I decided to become part of the union. Of course, unfortunately, I didn't have much work this year just because of the strike. yet I know that once things start picking up, then that side of like my my photography house will start to be, start to build back up. So I think there is benefit, because I know although Atlanta is a like a work for hire state, a lot of productions, you can't hire someone unless they are part of the union. So once you become part of the union and start, how can I put this? Start working with different producers, just like you would stay in touch with creative directors, stay in touch with producers as well, because they work several movies, months or years out. And if you stay top of mind, then there's a possibility that you can do another movie as soon as you finish another one. Now, I will say it's a lot of work, a lot of long days, a lot of hard work. But to see your images out in the wild and like magazines and posters and stuff like that, it makes it worth it. So just know that being part of the union and doing those different type of shoots has definitely been like one of the top parts of my current photography career.
That's awesome. This has been so valuable. I myself have been taking lots of notes, like, okay, this, okay. Gonna do this. We have like 2 more minutes. So I personally, I would also like to know about this. I think one thing we struggle with or question about is like, okay, I'm really good at photo, but I also do video and audio, or I'm really good at editing, but I'm also doing commercial. The specific question that I think we can also even like take it a step further is, what advice would you give to someone when they want to transition from one sort of space to another, but they also don't want to lose the momentum like you've built up, or the contacts, and like, yeah, or how can you like continue to kind of do it all? Like, how can you make it work that they sort of all feed off of each other and kind of work hand in hand? Because I consider you editorial, commercial, like, and that you do it all well, right? So how do you do that? Or is it just a Lynsey Weatherspoon thing and we're all just
Well, it's definitely not the Lynsey Weatherspoon show. I will say that having supportive friends, supportive artists around you, other folks that can do things way better than you can, folks that you can ask questions to. And I feel like I've fostered that community around me, and they've been extremely supportive. So if there's one thing that I don't know how to do, somebody else will take it up for me. Or I can ask the question of who else could I contact in order, to make this specific thing happen. So I would dare not say it's all me. It's the people that's around me, like you all as well, like the organizations that you all are in, like to get nuggets from those places as well has been helpful. So, I do want to say that, and this is to everybody, you don't have to do everything. Somebody is next to you that knows how to do something else, that where you can collaborate with that person, or maybe that person can edit a project for you because they may have a little bit of downtime. You don't have to, essentially what I'm saying is you don't have to do it yourself. There's somebody that's next to you that if you all have a longer conversation, you'll find out what they can do and how you two can help each other. And just to give a little bit more about that, I'm currently reading this book called The Artist's Way. And to be so in tune with the fact that I don't have to be the end all be all for everything, that I can ask for help, means a lot. So just as I said earlier about the whole thing about communication, you have to find a way that's going to be useful for you, but don't kill your artist self by trying to do it yourself. You are a whole being. You have a life. You may have kids. You may have a partner. You may have a dog. You may like to swim. You might like to do all of these things, but don't put all of that pressure on yourself to make everything happen instantly. Look to your creative resources that surround you.
That was
my
drop. What else did you say?
I know, it's like, well, that's it. Like, people, the period over.
But I really speechless. Yeah, I really do hope that all of this helped. And And I feel like you all have my Instagram and everything. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer what I can. And if I can't, I'll find somebody that will.
Yes, and what we didn't mention is that Lynsey has an incredible YouTube channel as well. So not only will she answer your questions on IGDM, she'll make a YouTube video, like she does it all.
Most likely I will, yes.
Truly. So please go follow and subscribe to her YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much, Lynsey, for
Thank y'all,
all
I appreciate it.
shared, truly. And thank you all who've been joining in all day with us, or all evening, or wherever time you're at. This has been an amazing way to kick off this weekend's workshop, this season 4 at that. So thank you so much to all the teachers who have been sharing their wisdom and knowledge with us. Thanks for everyone for your great questions, for making this a great conversation, a great summit. We had some really rich and interesting conversations. And so again, we hope you've been paying attention and taking notes. If not, these are all recorded. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you so much, Lynsey. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you again to Marie de Jesus and Saina Bashir as well for the incredible sessions this morning. Tomorrow, the weekend workshop fun continues with classes on photographing stories beyond the headlines, incorporating video and filmmaking into your toolbox, and much more. So make sure to join for those as well. We'll get started at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York, DC, East Coast in the US. And it's the same link that you used for today. So we can't wait to see all of you again tomorrow.
But if you're not tired of us just yet, we have a meet and greet where we'll all interact and see each other's beautiful faces. And so Rebecca from the Everyday Project is dropping that link in the chat. Join us there literally in like 1 or 2 minutes so we can just connect and build community. We keep throwing that word around, but that's what it looks like, you know. This is what we're trying to do. And so please join us if you can in that Zoom link, or we'll just hang out some more.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, I know we said it a bunch of times today, but we really want to drill this home. We will have the recordings of these classes on our website, so look out for those. Follow us on social media. Rebecca's gonna paste that again into the chat for you if she hasn't already, because she's on it. We will also be sending out a survey to know what you'd like to learn in future essential classes. Thanks to all of you who have tuned in, who are part of these communities, for making these classes possible, for telling us what you want to learn, for telling us what resonates with you, for showing up and being here. You are the community as well. So please, tell us your thoughts in the survey and what you want to see for next year for season 5. And again, thank you so much to our other partner, in addition to the Everyday Projects and Black Women Photographers, Photo Wings, our partner in creating the essentials. This literally would not be possible without them. They are so passionate about education. Thank you again to the folks at the Everyday Projects who have been helping tirelessly behind the scenes, and to the one and only Polly, founder of Black Women Photographers. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. This is just the highlight of my year.
Literally, I'm like, I can't end the year without doing this with you, Danielle. Like literally. So thank you for everything that you do as well. And with that, we're gonna hop over into that new Zoom link to do the meet and greet. So join us, see us there, and then see us tomorrow as well for the next round of classes.
See y'all in a sec. Bye. Thank you, Lynsey.
Thank you.